Friends, citizens, countrymen, lend me your ears. Imagine a world where the peace and quiet of the Great White North is shattered. Picture it, American tanks rolling across the 49th parallel, F-35s soaring over the CN Tower. The reason Donald J. Trump, in all his infinite wisdom, has decided to add Canada to his real estate portfolio.
Now I know what you're thinking. Stephen, you beautiful patriotic cyborg, you're being ridiculous. And normally I'd agree. Conquering a peaceful neighbor and ally like Canada? It's ludicrous. It's unthinkable. It's not entirely outside the realm of possibility when it comes to that man. This isn't about partisan politics, folks. This is about a thought experiment. A terrifying, absurd, yet strangely compelling thought experiment. So, let's journey down this rabbit hole, shall we? Let's explore the hypothetical. What if Trump conquered Canada?
What possible reason could any sane person, let alone the former leader of the free world, have for invading Canada? Well, aside from a severe lack of poutine in his diet, there are a few things that might tempt a man like Trump. First, there's the land itself. Canada, my friends, is huge. It's got mountains, forests, lakes, you name it, they've got an abundance of it. And you know what they say about land? They're not making any more of it. At least that's what a certain real estate mogul might think.
Then there are the resources. Oil, natural gas, timber, fresh water. Canada's got it all in spades. And in a world increasingly worried about resource scarcity, that's a tempting prize. And let's not forget about the strategic location. Control of Canada would give the US complete dominance over North America, including access to the Arctic and its potential shipping routes. It's the kind of power play that would make a certain someone feel very, very important.
Okay, so let's say Trump, in all his wisdom, decides to invade Canada. Could he actually pull it off? Well, on paper, the US military dwarfs Canada's. We're talking more troops, more tanks, more planes, more of everything. But wars aren't won on paper, are they?
First off, there's the terrain. Canada is vast and unforgiving. Fighting in the frozen north would be a logistical nightmare. Plus, Canadians are a hardy bunch. They know how to handle themselves in the cold, and they're probably better shots than you think.
Then there's the international community. Do you really think the world would just sit back and watch as America steamrolls its peaceful neighbor? NATO would be in an uproar. The UN would be condemning it left and right. Even the Queen might have something to say about it.
And let's not forget about the Canadian spirit. Canadians are known for being polite, but don't mistake that for weakness. They'd fight tooth and nail to defend their home. Remember, this is the country that gave us hockey, eh? They know a thing or two about fighting on ice.
Section 4, One Nation under what exactly? Integrating Canada.
All right, let's say the unthinkable happens. The stars and stripes fly over Parliament Hill. The Canadian dollar is no more. Tim Hortons has been replaced by Dunkin' Donuts. What then?
Well, that's where things get really complicated. Integrating Canada into the US wouldn't be easy. Culturally, Canadians are distinct from Americans. They have their own values, traditions, and even their own brand of humor. Trying to force them to assimilate would be like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Economically, it wouldn't be a walk in the park either. Canada has its own currency, its own banking system, and its own social programs. Merging those with the US economy would be a logistical nightmare.
And politically, forget about it. Canadians are generally more liberal than Americans, and they're not going to be too happy about being ruled by a bunch of, well, you know.
In short, integrating Canada would be a mess. It would be like trying to herd cats. It would be like, well, you get the picture.
Section 5, The World Reacts, A New World Order.
Newsflash, folks, the world doesn't like bullies, and invading a peaceful neighbor like Canada, that's about as bullyish as it gets. The international response would be swift and severe, allies would distance themselves, sanctions would be imposed, the US would become a pariah state, isolated on the world stage. And for what? A few extra barrels of oil, some prime real estate in the Yukon? It wouldn't be worth it.
China, already vying for global dominance, would seize the opportunity to strengthen its own alliances and influence. Russia, licking its wounds after its misadventures in Ukraine, might even see it as a chance to make a move. The world order as we know it would be thrown into chaos.
Section 6, The High Cost of Conquest, A Lesson for the Ages.
War, as they say, is hell. But conquering Canada? That wouldn't just be hell, it would be like trying to get maple syrup out of a moose. It would be messy, expensive, and ultimately pointless. The human cost would be immeasurable. Lives lost, families torn apart, a generation scarred by conflict. And for what? To satisfy the ego of one man? To add another star to the American flag? It's not worth it.
Economically, it would be devastating. The cost of the invasion, the occupation, the integration, it would bankrupt the country. And that's not even taking into account the damage to trade, tourism, and international investment.
But perhaps the greatest cost would be to America's soul. Invading Canada would betray the very values of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law that the US claims to uphold. It would turn the land of the free into the land of the bully.
Section 7. So about that wall, who's paying for this mess?
So there you have it, folks. The hypothetical scenario of a Trump-led invasion of Canada, a recipe for disaster, a logistical nightmare, a moral travesty, and a comedy writer's dream come true. But here's the thing. We don't need hypothetical scenarios to see the dangers of unchecked ambition and the allure of easy answers. We see it every day in our own politics, in our own communities, and even in our own hearts.
The next time you're tempted to solve a problem with force, to demonize those who are different, or to put your own interests above the common good, remember this little thought experiment. Remember the hypothetical invasion of Canada. And ask yourself, is this really the kind of world we want to live in?
Because if the answer is no, then we have a responsibility to build a better one. A world where diplomacy trumps aggression, where cooperation conquers division, and where the only walls we build are bridges of understanding. And hey, if we can get some free healthcare and poutine out of the deal, well, that's just a bonus, eh? Stay strong, stay vigilant, and for the love of all that is holy, stay out of Canada's way.